What's the story behind the story? That's the question that we need to ask ourselves when we consume press releases and announcements that have been released by this regime. And what that means is that you'll see a set of disconnected stories, and what you have to do is take seemingly disconnected announcements from the regime and ask yourself, what's the bigger story? What's the big picture that we aren't seeing because we've been conditioned to look at these things as isolated announcements? So let me give you an example of what this looks like. Recently, the regime put on the 250th anniversary celebration, monster truck rally and tractor pull and human cockfighting on the front lawn of the White House. And this event was publicized as some sort of big celebration of the US when it was really just a glorified birthday party for the diapered orange dementia patient. The tangerine thumbtack wanted all the attention on himself, but unfortunately, the best he could do was sit there and pass out while thousands of people were screaming and yelling while observing the fight. But that's not where the story is. The story is what came out literally the day after. Kash Patel and the FBI released an announcement stating that 5 men were arrested and charged in a plot to attack and kill government officials and others attending the UFC championship at the White House. And in typical fashion for Kash Patel, the investigation was ongoing, but because he was in a race to steal attention for himself and justify his existence as FBI director, he leaked the news and made a big announcement while there were still somewhere in the neighborhood of 19 different people that were out wandering around that were supposedly associated with this plot. Now, whether you believe that this plot is real or not, it's worth taking inventory of, because the sequence of events that led to this arrest was pretty fast as far as investigations go. They were made aware of the threat on June 10th and were able to consolidate all of this information and arrest 5 people involved, and are still searching for others that are involved by the time the event had taken place. And what's interesting is that Kash Patel makes this announcement the day after he was attending the event, and even after the fact that he conceded that there are others that are out in the wild that haven't been captured yet. Seems kind of weird that you would be attending an event that had an active and credible threat to the point where you made arrests, and then you would show up at the event. And what's even more interesting is that when the tangerine thumbtack was asked at the G7 conference about the quote-unquote thwarted attack, he said he had no idea what the reporter was talking about. So that's one piece of the story. And this is where you have to start connecting the dots. So the other piece that's interesting about all of this goes back to the Trump regime's general posture when it comes to people who are protesting the regime. Now, let's keep in mind that the people that were arrested for the so-called terrorist attack aren't in the category of lawful protesters. But what the Trump regime has done through DHS has labeled anybody who is legally and lawfully protesting against the actions of this regime, they've labeled them domestic terrorists. They've also identified Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization and defined it in such a way that anybody who is in opposition to the regime is considered a domestic terrorist. Now, those two things are seemingly disconnected. And another piece of the puzzle that is seemingly disconnected has to do with Larry Ellison and his involvement with TikTok. Now, even before the TikTok acquisition, Ellison and Oracle, and specifically Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, was providing the data hosting services for the US entity of TikTok. So that means every piece of data that exists within TikTok is being stored on Oracle servers and Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Now, that footprint became even bigger once the acquisition went forward. And if you want to get an idea of why this is important, listen to this from Larry Ellison.
Your body cams will be transmitting that. The police will be on their best behavior because we're constantly watching and recording everything that's going on. Citizens will be on their best behavior because we're constantly recording and reporting everything that's going on. How do you take advantage of these incredible AI models? And the first thing a country needs to do is to unify all of their data so it can be consumed and used by the AI model. You have to take all of your healthcare data, your diagnostic data, your electronic health records, your genomic data. And in the Middle East, in the UAE, for example, they're incredibly rich in data. They have a lot of population data. The NHS in the UK has an incredible amount of population data, but it's fragmented. It's not easily accessible by these AI models. We have to take all of this data we have in our country and move it into a single, if you will, unified data platform. So we provide context. When we want to ask a question, we've provided that AI model with all the data they need to understand our country. So that's the big step. That's kind of the missing link. We need to unify all of the national data, put it into a database where it's easily consumable by the AI model, and then ask whatever question you like. We have these modern financial systems. So countries can, and all, for example, the AI system will help you do that. But again, the secret is to get all of that data in one place. Without having the basic data, it cannot answer the question about your country. I think countries are very uncomfortable with keeping their data in other countries' data centers. So I think part of our essential infrastructure, just like airports obviously need to be in our country, or they're not terribly useful. Ports need to be in our country, and they're not terribly useful. Data centers, because of the privacy requirements around the data, need to be in our countries, or they're not terribly useful. They need to be in our countries, but they also need to be secure.
Now, what you heard is Larry Ellison's grand vision of what the future of society would look like. And he's describing a society where every piece of data on every single individual is stored and processed in real time to ensure behavior aligns with whatever the government deems is acceptable. Now, consider that and combine it with all of the data that's being collected from TikTok, as well as every other social media platform that is being funneled into Oracle Cloud infrastructure for data storage, and supposedly no analysis is done on all of that. Now you have three pieces of the puzzle, and they all seem disconnected, right? Let me add a fourth piece. Have you heard of Eris Labs? Most of us haven't. And what's interesting about Eris Labs is that they're an Israeli defense tech startup who were in stealth mode, and they recently came out of stealth having a $60 million war chest available to them. Now, what Eris does, or at least what they're publicly stating, is that they are a defense intelligence platform that allows defense agencies and intelligence agencies to collect all sorts of battlefield information from all sorts of different sources and collate and analyze it in a way that gives you a big picture of the battlefield. So basically what this company does is that they use AI to analyze visual information from multiple sources and generate a real-time intelligence picture. And they have 60 million in funding to go ahead and expand. And they have a number of venture capital companies that are invested in them. Now, what's interesting is that their pitch is going to be focused on defense and intelligence agencies all around the world. So how is that related to any of the things that I mentioned? So think about this. You have a supposed terrorist attack that was thwarted. You have 19 people that are still on the run who are suspects in this attack. You have a tech billionaire who has ungodly amounts of data that's stored on his infrastructure. You have a regime in power that labels any citizen that is opposed to their wishes an enemy of the state and a domestic terrorist. And now you have a defense and intelligence company based out of Israel who's got a product that allows you to analyze tons of video data from multiple sources in order for you to surveil and do analysis of a particular theater that you're engaged in. What does that sound like to you? What could be the application of that sort of technology in the US? How could intelligence agencies, law enforcement, and every entity in between leverage that data to keep tabs on people that they want to keep tabs on, or track down anyone who's been accused of any sort of wrongdoing or being an enemy of the state? And that's where the puzzle comes together. That's where everything fits together and gives you the big picture of what's really the story behind the story. A lot of what I do in my career is about creating demand for products where demand doesn't exist. What better way to create demand for an intelligence solution and a surveillance platform than leveraging a quote unquote terrorist attack as a justification for investing in more surveillance tech? That's what I think is going on here. What do you think is really going on with this announcement about this so-called terrorist attack that was foiled by J. Edgar Boozer and his FBI goons? Is it legit, or is it something that's thrown out there to create the need for more surveillance? Let me know in the comments.